Okay, now we can finally talk about some teams. Free agency has slowed down. It extended one extra show, but now we can chill out. Welcome to Old Man Squad, everybody. I'm Dan Bespers. Today we're talking the Los Angeles Lakers, not just because they're my hometown team, not just because they're the team I do root for once the fantasy season is over, but also because I think it's maybe the easiest team to just sort of slide into team previews part of the year, and we'll kind of see how far we get. I don't know that we actually ever finished all 30 team previews last year because leagues opened earlier than expected. And if that happens again, too damn bad to the league or to the team previews, because we're going to talk about leagues when they open. For now, this is what the Lakers looked like last year. You can see some of the numbers on your screen from our buddies over at Basketball Monster. By the way, hit that like button. Rate if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify. Subscribe no matter how you're taking in the content. We're going to continue to grow Old Man Squad all through the offseason as we've done so far. Pretty awesome that we've actually gotten bigger instead of shrinking this time of year. As you see before you, the Lakers were basically a three-trick pony with a very slight exception you could probably carve out if we look at like the second half of the season for Rui Hachimura. Luka Doncic, over the last 30 or so games of the year, he was number 12. Austin Reeves, believe it or not, the second half of the year was a second rounder. LeBron was also a second rounder, but that's not surprising to anyone. And then there's that steep drop off before you get to Hachimura, who was a 10th rounder the second half of the year. Jackson Hayes was sitting just outside the top 200 second half of the year. There was a stretch in there where he was sort of teetering right on the edge of being a top 100 guy. Dorian Finney-Smith didn't do enough fantasy-wise to really be involved in the discussion. As we look towards next year, let's start with the players that we know are going to carry over. And Luka Doncic is certainly the easiest of those. In his time, I guess we should say in his time with the Lakers, I don't really care what he did with the Mavericks last year, but in Luka's time with the Lakers, he played 35 minutes a game. Yeah, it's a big number, but he's a superstar, so he's going to be up there in that pretty high count. He averaged 28 points per game, 8 rebounds, 7.5 assists, 1.6 steals, half a block. He did it on what was almost a career low field goal percent of just 43.8. The shot selection really didn't change all that much for him. He just wasn't making his two-pointers in LA. He shot just 49% from two. Over his career, he's a 55% two-point shooter. Free throw number for him has progressively gotten better over his career. This last season, he was hovering around 78% or so, and that's actually where he's been for the last couple seasons in a row, with the caveat that free throw is a little weird and they could certainly fall back a little bit farther down. If we assume that Luka's going to do similar amounts of stuff this year with the Lakers as he did post-trade last season, we can probably also assume that the field goal percent is going to tick back up. How far remains to be seen, but we've got to assume that the two-point stuff, like he shot 50% from two on his rookie season, and he was at 49 with the Lakers last year. So it's just a really bad two-point shooting run for him. During his time in Dallas, last season he was at 56% in Dallas, the year before 57, 59 the year before that. I don't think we can expect 59, but he'd never been below 52.8 since his rookie year. So assume that the field goal percent is going to come back up by probably 2 to 3%. If you roll that in with all the other stuff that went on with Luka in LA, and you just tack on an extra fraction of a point, and the field goal percent becomes less of a negative or maybe even approaches neutral, he becomes a top 5 fantasy player again. That's where he's been. That's where he likely will be. If you think he stays healthy this year, which I generally do, you can draft him pretty safely, I would think, inside the top 5. BetOnline continues to be your number one source for sports betting action. You got baseball, UFC, tennis. You've got EuroLeague basketball. You got WNBA. You've got NFL futures. You've got soccer from all over the world. I couldn't possibly keep track of all of it. But you know who can? The good folks at BetOnline, because they've got the latest odds, news, scores, and live in-game betting on all of that stuff, the whole broad swath that I just talked about, you can bet on basically any time of day or night to your heart's content. In between games, too, head on down to the BetOnline Casino with all your top Vegas-style action like poker, a live casino. I've given a whirl on some of the blackjack games. They're mostly fun. Some of them are variants and things like that. You'll see these actually at table games inside casinos as well. All of that is in the BetOnline Casino. And on top of all of that, the BetOnline community has industry-leading VIP programs like level up bonuses, cash boosts to increase your odds of winning on specific bets, and then more stuff as well. BetOnline, the game starts here. So, we talked a little bit about Luka, who I meant to share the Luka tab while we were discussing him, and then I promptly forgot to, but there's Luka's face. Better late than never, I suppose. The next name on the list that we should probably talk about is LeBron James, because there's still stuff swirling with LeBron about what he's going to be this coming year. Is he going to remain in Los Angeles? Is he going to ask out? He's 40, which is crazy. This will be his age 41 season. I think he's going to stay in LA. His kid is on the team for one, basically strong-armed the Lakers into drafting Bronny. I have no real problem with that, but it'd be pretty weird for him to do that and then promptly leave Los Angeles because it pulls the safety net out from under his kid. The rest of his family is in Brentwood. I know that, like, players move all the time, but when you hit a certain age, and 40 being one of them, and I can speak to this because I'm older than LeBron, you start to value those what you quote unquote simpler things in life, family time, and just like a nice, easy place to call home. I don't think this 40, almost one in the season, he'll be 41. I don't think this 40-year-old dude wants to go live out of what, I mean, I guess he's got a place he could stay at in Akron, but like, you think he wants to go to some other team and live out of a house or an apartment or something that he's got to get before the season? Or is he going to live in a hotel for a while? I'd be surprised. Anything is possible, but I'd be surprised. Last year, LeBron, during the second half of the season, was number 19. For the entire year, he was basically right around that as well. It was another good season for Bron. I think he was number 20 overall. 24.5 points, 8 boards, 8 assists, a steal, half a block, 2 threes, 51-78 were the splits. And again, it didn't really change all that much. Second half of the year, percentages were a little bit better. Numbers by and large were all just like a hair better the second half of last season. And yeah, you know, you could continue to guess the year that LeBron is going to slow down. As 3 seasons back, it kind of looked like he was about to slow down, and then that very much did not happen. I feel like, and I've talked about this on other shows before, you know, it's nice to be the smartest person in the room. Feels good. But predicting the LeBron drop-off is, at this point now, I think trying to be the smartest person in the room. And I've done this before. 2 years ago, I tried to predict it, and I was wrong. And I was not the smartest person in the room. I looked like a dum-dum. So I'm done doing that. You know, it's chasing a stock on the way down when you think it's about to come back up. It's all that kind of stuff. No point in chasing here with LeBron. Let's just assume that he's going to be fine until we see otherwise. Expect some days off if the Lakers are playing relatively well, which I think they'll probably be, at the very least, an okay basketball team this regular season. So no, I you know, LeBron getting to 70 games this last year felt like probably a high watermark for him. I think 70 would probably be a target if he could get to it. But assume there'll be some sort of small erosion. I don't know how much it'll be. He was almost not a punt free throw guy this last year. Obviously, he's going to have his high turnovers because he's still LeBron at the end of the day. Late second round, early third feels very reasonable for LeBron, just like it's been for a couple of seasons now. He's probably not going up. He might go a little bit down, and you just sort of roll with it from there. So, yeah, I mean, not a whole lot to talk about on the LeBron front, unless, like, I'm not here to give you this, oh, it's about to happen kind of chat. I don't think it's even remotely close to that. By the way, while we're recording this show, it's a giveaway when I was recording it, Paolo Banchero just signed a $290 million extension. Woof! Man alive. That is a lot of money. Doesn't matter. We'll get to the Magic at some point. Maybe we won't. I don't know. But again, like on the LeBron front, we can scroll down a little bit to see if we can get to the want an overview. I want like, where's the LeBron? I'm not as familiar with the ESPN page breakdown, but it had a nice. There we go. Let's go to the stats. That's the one. Look at all those seasons. My God. So anyway, LeBron, he's been good for a long time. His scoring was the lowest it's been this past season since the injury-plagued 2020-2021 season in LA. And yeah, there's probably some downticks happening here. 18 shots a game, 18 the year before. This is less for Bron than usual. And with Luka around, it should continue to trickle that way. But I just can't imagine it's going to be something significant. Let's talk about Rui Hachimura next, which I realize is nuts, but I want to kind of get him out of the way because by all accounts, Rui had a pretty good season in LA. Nothing crazy. He took about 10 shots a game. Percentages were good. He was a pretty efficient dude, 51% from the field. He was actually a 41%er from downtown. He was wide the hell open pretty much every time he was taking shots. And it landed him over the second half of the season at number 116, which is basically startable. Although super low turnovers was part of it. There wasn't really a way that you could call Rui like a team build kind of dude. There was no way to make him more valuable for your team. There were really kind of only ways to make him less valuable to your team. And with DeAndre Ayton in town, we're going to keep the Rui Hachimura discussion very simple. You don't have to worry about him. You don't have to worry about him this year. The Lakers have a very clear fourth option, big man option on the team that they didn't have after trading Anthony Davis last year. And if you want to talk about like a legitimate fourth option, I don't think the Lakers have had one of those. I mean, I guess you could say D'Angelo Russell a couple years ago. He and Austin Reeves were sort of like fighting for the third pole behind LeBron and Anthony Davis. But this is the first time I think we've seen the Lakers with a real true pecking order behind the main guys that really truly does go four deep. And it's just not going to leave stuff for others. That was one of the reasons to like the D'Angelo Russell trade for the Lakers, is that it pushed his usage to Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura, because we knew Dorian Finney-Smith was basically not going to have any usage, and he didn't. He took like 6 shots a game in LA. But then all of a sudden, Rui was back up over 10 shots a game. He was closer to 11 shots a game in the later parts of the season. Austin Reeves was at 14 and a half shots per game the second half of the season, after being more like 13 and a half the first half. So it wasn't this big seismic shift that went on, but it was enough to push Rui closer in a way that now we don't have to worry about, because he moves down to that fifth peg. And there are a handful of teams out there in the NBA that have 5 viable fantasy players, but not teams where the top 2 guys are also among the league's highest usage monsters. I mean, Luka Doncic is consistently a top 3 usage player in the NBA. LeBron's not going to be top 5 anymore, but he's probably still going to be top 10, top 15. And then Austin Reeves is not going to be all that low either. He's not like going to be at the very tippy top of the usage board, but this is a guy that was getting to do a lot even after the acquisition of Luka Doncic. Reeves is also extraordinarily durable. I don't want to let that stat go unnoticed. Since he started playing more, which is basically the last 2 seasons, because he was getting screwed around with the year before that, he played in 82 and then 73 games. And 73, you could tell he wasn't super thrilled about. He wanted to play in more than that. Reeves is a solid ball player. He's good at both percentages, a little bit worse from the field this last year because the volume went up, the threes went up, all that kind of stuff. But he's a great foul shooter, pretty good field goal percent guy. I don't think he's going to shoot 53% like he did a couple years ago at this volume, but rebounds a little bit, not a ton. Assists well, even though he's now the third ball handler on this team. Like, you can, again, look at the last, if you want, you can look at like the last 2 months of this past season, which, how much is that clear? That gets Reeves. That gets a little more Luka, LeBron, Austin all together. Because remember, Luka was hurt after the trade. And Austin was a third rounder during that stretch with 5 assists a game. Luka had 8. LeBron had 6.5. All of these guys were getting usage. And Reeves shot 48% during that run. 90 from the free throw line. He was awesome. I know it's crazy to think this, but like, I think there's a legitimate chance that after a brilliant stretch run, Reeves might still get underdrafted just because he's playing with Luka and LeBron. I don't think that DeAndre Ayton dramatically impacts what Austin Reeves does. I do think that LeBron is going to miss a couple extra games this year. I'm hoping Luka doesn't, but it's a possibility. So there's a lot of ways for Reeves to be really, really, really good this coming year. The advantage we get there is that over the entire season, Austin was number 39. And so it's possible people look at that and they're like, oh, all right, top 40, which, by the way, would be a great year. But he was better than that down the stretch because his percentages were better. What we have to determine is, were the percentages better because he went on a 2-month heater, or was it because the team makeup was just better for him to get looks? Was he getting more open looks in this iteration of the Lakers? He had a bad playoff run, so that might sort of tamp down his value. But like, to me, Austin Reeves is a pretty clear top 50 fantasy play, even as the third fiddle on this team. And I would have no problem with you guys taking him in there. Because it kind of feels like a worst case scenario for him is a little usage erosion, and he falls from, a safe top 40 to like a safe top 60. Who cares if you draft a guy at the beginning of the 5th round that ends up as a late 5th or an early 6th or something like that, especially if he's durable. Maybe that's a reason alone. We talk about guys like Pascal Siakam. Now, the Pacers are a weird story this year because they may or may not compete all season long. But like, Siakam, crazy durable. He's very rarely going to hit his per game ADP, but he's almost always going to beat it by totals. And I feel like Austin Reeves might be chugging down that same path. I don't know when he's going to get drafted. If he actually gets drafted in the 3rd round, that's a lot. But it feels like Reeves is going to go 4th, 5th round this year, and I'm totally fine with that. This dude averaged 22 points per game down the stretch and 20 for the year. Lakers had 3 guys averaging 20 points per game down the stretch. That's pretty amazing, actually. It's actually borderline remarkable. I didn't remember to put him up on the screen either. I'm sorry, Austin. You guys are still looking at the Rui Hachimura picture. I'm sorry, YouTubers. I screwed up this one from the get-go. I gotta get out of this ESPN thing. The ESPN pages are messing me up. You got this like massive advertisement for a random State Farm agent. What is this? Get out of there. Get out of here. All right. We cleaned it up. All right. So anyway, let's get to the new edition. This is a remix edition of a song about pissing. Here's DeAndre Ayton. There he is on your screen, YouTubers. Everybody else, you can just hear me yell about him for a minute. Yeah, the Lakers brought back Jackson Hayes and blah, 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 blah. And they got a rookie coming in and blah, blah, blah. And they still got Dalton Connect and blah, 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 blah. I don't care. The Lakers have a number of players on their roster that are going to wedge themselves in around the periphery. Jordan Goodwin, Bronny, Maxi Kleba, that I already mentioned, Connect. Jake LaRavia was an interesting signing. Jake LaRavia is probably going to take a lot of the Rui Hachimura minutes, by the way. Or the Jared Vanderbilt minutes. I really hope Vando has his legs all the way underneath him. He really could be useful. But not from a fantasy standpoint. Not on a team that's going to have 4 clear fantasy players and just a whole wash of players that aren't even remotely close to relevant. Now, we talked a little bit about DeAndre Ayton, actually a fair amount, not a little bit, more like a medium bit, when the trade went down or in the episode that covered it. And Ayton is a really interesting case in the power of a fantasy player's short versus long-term memory. Because this past season was an epically bad season for Ayton. He's had a few seasons in a row now that have been disappointing for whatever series of reasons. His final couple of seasons in Phoenix, he played 58 games and then 67 games, even while he was putting up pretty good numbers. His first season in Portland, he actually had a really good statistical season, averaging 17 and 11, but he missed 27 ball games. And this past year was a train wreck. You know, he was, I would argue, probably his worst season ever, tied his career low in scoring, just barely beat his career low in rebounding. Steals and blocks were kind of right where they should be. Field goal percent was low by his standards. Free throw percent was a disaster this year at 67%. And so because of all these what I'm hoping are sort of just effort-based anomalies, DeAndre Ayton finished at number 82 per game last year. Even though the differences were not that massive. We're talking about 2.5 to 3 points from the field, half a rebound, and like 10% at the free throw line. But if you roll all that stuff together and you kind of, it's easy to forget how much these little things matter for everybody that's ranked between 40 and 100. You can move super fast with just little changes. Because like you go back 3.5 years ago, his usage rate in Phoenix, this would be his penultimate season with the Suns. His usage rate was almost the same that year as it was this last season with Portland. But he shot 8% better at the free throw line and 7% better from the field, even though his steals and blocks were lower. That was the 2021-2022 season. So, okay, what does that mean? All those little things, how much of a difference does that make? You can go back and you can look. You go back to 21-22. You search for DeAndre Ayton. He was number 45. So the percentages were better, even though the steals and blocks were worse, and he was ranked 35 slots higher. I will give you that there are more quality fantasy players now. If you put up those same numbers that DeAndre put up in 2021, 17 and 10, 1.4 combined defensive stats, 63-75 were the percentages splits. If he put up those numbers now, he probably wouldn't be number 45. It'd probably be more like number 55 to 60. But that's still a lot better than 80. That's still 2 rounds higher just on percentages being closer to what we assumed they would be. He is going to shoot excellently from the field on the Lakers. There's no doubt in my mind he's going to be getting easy looks like he got in Phoenix. Chris Paul, Devin Booker, etc. Got him easy looks. In Portland, they didn't really get him easy looks. He didn't try all that hard. They didn't really want him there, and he sort of threw in the towel after a month and a half of this year. Chucked it. I don't know if DeAndre Ayton is going to be a top 50 fantasy play this year. I think there's going to be a rush on him because of the expectation that he's going to be kind of surging with a Luka and LeBron Lakers. And so I am worried that on the DeAndre Ayton front, we get so carried away in the expectation that his efficiency is going to go up and his effort's going to go up and the numbers will follow. We forget that he's not really a big defensive stats guy, and that kind of caps out his value. And he profiles like a more accomplished offensively version of Jarrett Allen, who, by the way, has a whole corridor of centers named after him. Don't you forget it. What was Jarrett Allen's rank this last year? Number 53 on 14 and 10 with a steal, a block, 71-72. That's right. He almost shot better from the field than the free throw line. DeAndre Ayton is probably not going to be all that far away from that. I bet he averages about 2 to 2.5 points per game better, probably a half a rebound to 0.8 of a rebound more, probably slightly lower defensive stats and field goal percent. Free throw is probably relatively close. Those guys are going to end up in that same general area. So all those centers that are mushed in together, Bam Adebayo, Jarrett Allen, Miles Turner, DeAndre Ayton, who we just talked about. I was going to say Onyeka Okongwu, but now Kristaps Porzingis is there, so that might throw a little bit of a wrench into that. John Collins with the Clippers is center eligible. He's probably going to be in like the 60s this year. Jakob Poeltl should be in there. Mark Williams should be in there with the asterisk of, a health injury risk kind of thing. JJJ should be at the front end of this group, but he should probably be in there also. And you got all these centers that are going to be ranked per game somewhere between 35 and 60. Screw it. Put Rudy Gobert on the list, or Siakam if you think he's an actual center, which I don't really, but in any event. Lots of centers to choose from. DeAndre Ayton belongs in that pocket with those guys, and I have zero qualms with you taking him anywhere between about pick 40 and about 65. I don't think that there's that big of a difference there. Obviously, if you have somebody at 40 you're targeting that has, you believe, more upside, which there probably would be someone there, go that direction. But, if you get to like pick 46, 47, and all the guys that you actually like are off the board, look at these centers. Look at Jarrett Allen. Look at DeAndre Ayton. Look at Miles Turner. Bam will be gone. But look at all these guys and just go, you know what? We're just going to go safe here. It's okay to go safe. Can DeAndre Ayton make it through a season playing 70-some-odd games? That is a great question and one I don't have the answer to. He was pretty healthy his first and third years in the NBA, and that's kind of it. I would assume that he probably misses anywhere from 10 to 20 games this coming season, so that's a reason to knock him down. And if you're looking at guys in that Jarrett Allen corridor, you probably lean more towards a Jarrett Allen, who was super durable this last year, as opposed to a DeAndre Ayton. But if you're a Laker fan, and I know a lot of you guys are, maybe you want to root for a dude that's going to be on your team. And that is our first team breakdown. What a time. What a time. We have many of these, and obviously if any news pops up, we'll cover that as well here on the show. For now, that was it. Wanted to get that thing in there. Wanted to get our first team show in. Thank you for watching. Like, rate, subscribe. I don't know when shows are going to be dropping this week because I'm going to be gone the second half of the week to Vegas. Check out some NBA Summer League just to see what it's like. Roll some dice. See some friends. So stay tuned. The only way you can know when shows are falling, that's not the word, dropping, is to subscribe. I'm Dan Vespris. I'll see you guys on Twitter at Dan Vespris. I'm not there that much in the off season, but don't worry. We'll get revved up again here soon. Old Man Squad on Blue Sky. Subscribe. I'll see you guys soon. Somewhere.